to this LCE Q&A on March 14th. We have got a whole bunch of questions for you guys prepared. We have redone the list so that we can get as many questions as possible answered for you. Andrew's on top form today. And is there anything you want to say before we start this Q&A today?
I want to thank everyone that's come into this brand new Q&A series that we're going to be doing. There's been 20 previous ones, and we are going to be giving you more and more layers here. And what you're going to be doing is Natalie's going to be going through some of the questions, and she's organized them because a lot of them are duplicate questions. And we've compressed them so we can answer a lot more questions.
Yes, and then basically if we have like questions that are very similar, what we've done is we're going to read each individual question that are similar, and then we're going to basically give you a rounded up answer, because we have a lot of questions about paradoxes and light bodies, and we wanted to take the specific questions that you've asked, specifically quote them and state them to Andrew, so that if there's something else in there that you might want to add, you can do so accordingly.
Yeah.
So you ready to begin?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's
All
go
right.
with the first question.
Okay, this question is from Sabrina, and this is again a light body section question. We have two questions that cover light bodies today, and first one is from Sabrina. Andrew always talks about the blue body and the red body. Do we come with other colored bodies? Can he qualify who and where these bodies come from? I understand that it is a type of blueprint we come in with to do specific work and missions, but can he please elaborate? So that was the first question on the light bodies.
Let me answer this one as basic as I can.
Okay.
For every color that you have a chakra, you have a body that exists for it. And your red infrared body that is attached to your root chakra may have 30 or 40 bodies out there dealing with the infrared ancestral world, the infrared ghost world, or the infrared energy world of synchronistic exchange. When you go up the scale and you go to your sacrum, you are in an orange energy. And that is how your spirit manifests into your intestinal tract through the dream world, interacts with this reality that is also layered over here. So that is a body that doesn't just have one. It could have 30, 40, 50, or in some scenarios, hundreds or thousands, because in the dream world, it is still running here in the now. We're just not dealing with it. But it'll exist within your aura. And those aura, that in your aura is where we see how the dreaming bodies are constantly exchanging energy. When we go to the next level, the solar plexus, we are dealing with yellow, how this I am presence as recognized or unrecognized technology deals with everything that is orange and red. So we are the intersection at the solar plexus. It is also how we deal with solar energies from the sun or moon energies during darkness. It determines what levels of fears and hesitations we have. This is where we create watchers. This is where we create sentinels. These are also bodies. These are more programs that we create as different than experiential bodies for the lower two. But as we become adept, we can literally create a yellow body that interacts with this world and the two worlds that are existing above and below it, and make a body that understands a lot more. When we move into the heart space, green, it is the people that we are heart space connected to. It represents the common portals that are allowed in our aura that are within our sovereignty. And each one of those can be a body also. Heart-spaced expression can go up and down the spectrum of colors at any point and get filters of information. When we move from the heart to the upper things, these are considered one body that can operate on all of the other spectrums of color and filter themselves differently. When we're finally at the third eye and the crown chakra, the third eye is its own body when you're remote viewing, remote experiencing, etc., etc., etc. The crown is how your infinite spirit, which is its own experiential body, not in hierarchical order, not in the apex, deals with you, who is the apex. So it is two bodies creating one perspective. So yes, we have many light bodies, and there are times that I run across people who become very haunted because their lower chakras is they've created 200, 300, or 400 bodies that are being fed off by other entities, and these bodies don't even operate around them. They're hundreds of miles away at times.
So how, I mean, just to ask a question, which I know people would ask after you've made a statement like that, when you have all these hundreds of bodies that are being haunted and being fed off and have done all these different things, you feel that physically in the form that you have terrible nightmares, you're always sick, you feel very low on energy, you have different mood swings. Are those part of the signs?
Those are all the beginning signs. Dark circles under the eyes, lack of sleep, determines if a body becomes a soul shard, meaning there has been enough pain that the body is trying to shed into that experience, or that experience has pain that it doesn't want to transmit back anymore because it's in a captured scenario. It'll become a soul shard, become disconnected from the body. That is the nature of the grind that we work in. The system is constantly trying to ground us down to make as many infrared bodies or spiritual bodies as possible so they can begin capturing and moving these pieces away to be fed.
So,
this is where I Am Presence work brings your connection back to them in their state of trappedness and communicate to them as apex that nothing has control over you. This I Am Presence is your source root. And if you shine enough all-colored rainbow light to them, they begin to come 1 and 2 and 3 steps closer to you. Though they have some dirtiness, this is where spiritual hygiene during contracts is so vitally important.
and this is where we bring in the spiritual court of equity. We open up the spiritual court of equity. We bring this forth to the ancestors so that these soul shards can then find their remedy and resolve within the spiritual court of equity through the ancestors.
Before they come to you.
Before they calibrate and integrate with you as the apex of this I Am experience. All right.
They've gone through that spiritual filter that you have set up.
Okay, so these contracts, these revocation contracts, again, another huge key to finding peace inside.
Not just the 5 that I wrote. It requires, after a while, for you to write your own. You know, and we have said this many times. I cannot begin to say how important it is to write your own. Take what I've written, take the beginning and the end. The beginning is the opening prayer, the summoning of the spiritual court of equity, and the end is you enter it in the Akashic record. Everything in between is yours. Use phrases from mine that help you build your mind and build your wording. And then after a while, don't even use the phrases I created. Make it your signature own. Go beyond mine. I set this as the bar, and I just want people to go further and further with it.
Oh, that's beautiful. The next question comes from Anthony, and he asks, Andrew has talked about our other selves, our light bodies, our soul family listening in as we listen to his teachings and learning as we learn. Can I use this shared act of physically watching Andrew to extend an invitation to those other selves to join me and journey together to find some kind of healing union? Can a reconnection be made to all those aspects of I Am with a conscious, cooperative intent of ceremonially watching the Galactic Historian show in togetherness, in a heart space meeting place, to help find healing, growth, remedy, and resolve for me personally, and perhaps raise the potential of the entire GH collective who likewise participate in the event individually? I love the way Anthony's thinking.
I give you a round of applause.
Beautiful.
Because in that question, you've already unified some of your other selves.
Yes.
In knowing this, because you've realized at some level I am broadcasting as a past, present, and future being anchored in a paradox and anchored in an end. So I'm a paradox within a paradox, and all of the soul shards existing in paradox recognize that innately. So when you begin to open a ceremony of self-cleanliness and hygiene so you can receive the stream, that is this voice that is interacting with all the energy bodies of not just mine, but everyone that's in this audience during the recording, everyone that's in the audience live, and everyone that's in the future archives, as well as everyone who might be remote viewing this experience. Every single entangled and unentangled observer is a part of the potential of this.
Yeah.
So when you open a spiritual court of equity and you go, I've unified parts of myself. So today, before we get to the show, I'm going to bring myself to a galactic spiritual court of equity. I'm going to create my local. I, in the ever-present moment, choose to form an ancestral spiritual court of equity. I summon all of my earth brothers and sisters to hold space in the spiritual court of equity. I call Earth Mother to be a part of it and all the elementals of existence. I call to all planets in our solar system in their planetary mind to bear sacred neutral witness in the spiritual court of equity. I call to the sun that gives us the divine light of universal connection to come in the spiritual court of equity with all astral solar connections as sacred neutral witness. I go to the galactic central sun, and I call you in your perfect witness to be here in sacred neutrality, so we take the scale that we have at the highest level of expression, so all ancestors are a part of the broadcast of a sacred neutral interaction on all experiential levels.
Beautiful.
We have just made the psychic grid by doing that.
Amazing. Amazing. And that's a good thing for everybody if they really are so inclined to then repeat before we begin these shows of union and communion, sharing information, sharing the questions, sharing what it is that we are and the experiences that we are here to endeavor to create and overcome. Beautiful. Thank you, Anthony. All right. So
there's some more to that question.
Okay.
Can you? I know it was such a poetic way you read it. Just read it as one stream, and there's more that I want to add.
Okay. He said, yeah, would the invitation require an invocation and a revocation, or have I lost the plot? No, you haven't lost the plot. You got it.
You got it before you asked the question.
Yeah.
That's the cool thing. So for other people that have been thinking about, doing a ceremony before a show to bring your sacredness to bear witness, what I do before a show in anything that I'm going to be recorded that's going to be matrix oriented changing, I look at the show before it happens, and I get a brief synopsis, and that brief synopsis tells me the potential in which I can come in and set a bar that this is the highest amount of spiritual energy that's going to be in this for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, or if there's a whole bunch of people remote viewing it. There was a show I did in early 2013 where we, with Teal Scott, and we had 800 million viewers in our crown chakras. And that was because we had connected the psychic grid of, 100,000 different worlds, but that was something that both Teal and I were doing consciously, subconsciously, and telepathically because of the potential that particular impact of that show had. So when anyone else adds their oneness in whatever expression it is, you are adding to the psychic connection on a galactic or universal scale. If you should build in your mind from that metaphor of the spiritual court of equity, of just the elements and spirits of earth that are your ancestors in unity consciousness, then the next level, your solar system that you exist in, you bring in the beings of solar time, then the universal galactic central sun, and universal. And you can even go to the point of your immigration into this universe so that being of you bears witness to this future moment it has never experienced before.
Would you like me to reread the question as you asked just before you started again? Less poetically?
Yes.
Okay. Andrew has talked about our other selves, our light bodies, our soul family listening in as we listen to his teachings and learning as we learn. Can I use the shared act of physically watching Andrew to extend an invitation to those other selves to join me and journey together to find some kind of healing union? Can a reconnection be made to all those aspects of I am with a conscious cooperative intent of ceremonially watching the Galactic Historian show in togetherness in a heart space, meeting place, to help find healing, growth, remedy and resolve for me personally, and perhaps raise the potential of the entire GH collective who likewise participate in the event individually? Would the invitation require an invocation and a revocation, or have I lost the plot?
You haven't lost the plot.
So that was the same question
that's
reviewed.
same
Is there
question.
anything else you'd like to say
Yes.
to that?
Ceremony and ritual. Both Natalie and I have a regular drink that we put a lot of energy in before we go on to the shows. You can do the same.
It's tea, by the way.
The ancient tea rituals, okay? The ancient tea rituals that are out there. Ancient. You can even do cereal. Oat. It's about what you're going to put your energy in to open that spiritual court of equity, or just open sacred space without the ancestors because you want individuate. There are some people for them to better understand the material, it isn't about having the ancestors present. It's just about the I am presence there without the negative ancestral chatter pulling them into a view of the information and just letting the information be, and when it's done, then process it. So for you, those people that are like that, a sacred tea. You know, what you can do is grab a box of tea bags and give it a 1 hour of honest meditative energy in the sun or in the moon. You just hold it in your lap, and during that meditation, remind yourself every now and then that this tea is going to be used for future moments where I'm listening and don't want to meditate, but want the sponge of meditation side that can just take in the information and understand it.
Yeah, so that it just comes into your soul and it's
Right.
just
Through
understood.
spiritual osmosis.
Spiritual osmosis.
Because at all times I am offering the entire stream for those to spiritually download it completely without any contracts in any way, shape, or form. That has been one of the other things that a lot of people who've come to understand the material, it is waiting for you in no time. And it isn't linked to me. It is the Akashic record. And it's not even that I created a portal. I created a photonic light frequency that you can connect into with your own light.
Beautiful.
And in that stream of light is everything that I've learned in the Akashic records in a sacred neutral witness, compact into the one little beam of light, and all you got to do is blink on it for a second and you have a synopsis. And then the synopsis gets bigger and bigger and bigger until you learn how to make queries with it.
Beautiful. You ready for the next question?
Ready for the next one.
Okay, this is a question we put in because sometimes a lot of people ask about other people. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? Andrew has a policy to always remain in sacred neutral, because it could be that this person is good for one, but maybe not so good for the other, because all of us are unique. So it's really the golden keys that each individual can relay to you. So I'm just going to ask this question so that people can get an idea of some of the questions that you don't really want to get into. Or
I've got something to add before you
Okay.
ask that. When we talk about other people's materials, we enter polarity immediately because we are in hierarchical order. An example, one person may teach something one way that is very passive, yet very self-empowering, that may be healing. Another person may be very aggressive, so the healing goes. Each is a signature frequency that attracts a being that has that common signature frequency. So everyone's material is just as equal as everyone else's, because we're going through the separation of densities. And each density layer of teaching is going to require a person who is at a certain layer of level of knowingness that knows that their teachings come out, and what comes back to them is, was their teachings received in polarity because they were broadcast in polarity, or they received in love, saying, yes, you truly helped me, and now let's get forward and move up.
Yeah.
Everyone is just as equal. Even the smallest mouse in the corner has a perspective that ultimately can change this world. And the greatest of the top has nothing to give us anymore, or something to give us, until they make that choice of change.
agree.
So go ahead and ask the question.
Okay. This was by Swimming Dragon Body. And they originally asked about specific yogis and the yogi lineages, a specific yogi in particular. And then another question, can Andrew reveal anything about John Chang, the Thunderpath practices, the Dragon Gate sect? What are their practices encompassing and designed to achieve? And this is exactly where you just wanted to state. This work can be invaluable to someone, and also if it's the wrong frequency for you, can really put you back a little bit. So it depends on what it is you need.
I can't be in justice or judgment of the material, and sometimes the nature of asking the question expects an answer in polarity.
Right.
Even if the polarity is saying it's good material, but it's missing this, this, and this.
And you know, when you have someone that, like you, that we all really respect how you give us information in that sacred neutral way. I mean, I know so many times when I've gone, I'm like, you know, I'm not so sure about this, does it resonate? And you've just said, look, go back and just go better into focus, go more into focus, revoke anything that might be blocking your stream of understanding, and then see again if that is what you need at this moment to do. Do not let anybody ever depict where you go or who you listen to.
And the biggest part of that teaching is be willing to have a belief system that best suits you at any moment. Have a la carte beliefs, a smorgasbord of belief systems. Don't stick yourself to a limited set of beliefs that don't allow your openness.
Hey, you know what? And if it works for you, Awesome.
All
Awesome.
teachers have benefit to something. It might be that one word that took you one phrase that took you 3 years of listening to do it, or it might be something like this where every phrase is triggerable if you're opening to that frequency. It's
Yeah.
the two extremes.
Yeah.
And we live in this world where we have, there's in between the extremes are all these layers of density that our different spiritual bodies are living with at all times. So there are times I may target a layer of information because I see billions and billions of infrared body around a consumerism or materialism topic, and then I'll hammer home with consumerism and materialism answers so that those bodies begin to be dispelled from that collection.
All right. Moving on to the next question from Thalassa. Can you describe the divinity path in more detail? What is a master soul, and what can we do not to ever come back here again?
Unfortunately, the answer to that question is until you realize that the earth is the gift, you are here. I use unfortunate because there is no any other English or any other version that says the experience finished here values everything that you went through as universal experience in fraud time. So the earlier part of the question, can you read it again?
That was, can you describe the divinity path more in detail?
The divinity path, and it ends to never leave again. I run across divinity path beings who have chosen never to be a divinity path being again because they got beat up so many lifetimes. And then they end up wanting to go somewhere else. And this is so common throughout the world of people awakening because you went through some crappy lifetimes. Conversely, you have done all the good lifetimes and all of the in-between. Once you are a divinity path being on earth once, you've been a divinity path being on earth millions of times because you're existing on all 4 paradox timelines. A divinity path being is somebody that comes in a layer of spiritual knowingness, knowing that they're going to be split into 4 parts and a 5th part and have no control over where their soul shards are going to emigrate to within the galactic ascension machine. So one time you may be on Saturn, another part of you may be on Pluto, another part of you may be on Megara, and then 5 parts of you may be on Earth as a caveman getting eaten by Tyrannosauruses every birth. Until you can make a master plan, that's what a master soul is, of how to bring these soul shards together by having one that's spiritual on Saturn and another spiritual on Earth, and they somehow connect to the planet and exchange light bodies through the filters of the planets to create an exchange of densities so that they can filter their highest soul shards to the densities of one planet. That's the other part of being a being of divinity. You are planning lifetimes 10,000, 20,000, or 100,000 in advance to get those soul shards into alignment. Now, people have heard me say that I've planned 10,000 lifetimes to be here. That was just on this planet. The millions of other lifetimes it took to get all those soul shards aligned enough so I could even make that choice. That's the big thing of the master soul. How the accordion of all your different energy bodies, of all your different existence, are still in universal expression doing things.
And then the mastery of that whole concept is to be able to become aware of all the places you are in and then start to be able to have that equation, frequency, communication, even if it's the mere glimpses, but building up. And you're like, okay, I'm here and I'm there. And then what is the true essence of all that I wish? And then you're calling that forth. You're imprinting that again and again and again until it all comes, it all falls into matter. And you start to be able to see it more clearly and guide it more clearly and then instruct it more clearly.
And then even another layer on top of that. Once we are recognized divinity beings in a materialized, manifested world, such as during the times of the Mahabharata, where the blue beings and the ships were flying around, well, right there, that means you are a time traveler. You're not just existing on that. You are consciously on 2, 3, or 4,000 timelines. In some scenarios, giving birth. In other scenarios, you're a warrior. In other scenarios, you're a banker. You're all of them, but you're still a divinity being. But one of those divinity beings, the apex, is the one that is trying to prevent extinction-level events, where other beings from other worlds are here to bomb Earth into the caveman or to try to destroy it. Divinity path beings have a warrior side and a healer side that are always in immediate response. If the cabal on our planet should say, hey, the planet's going to be broken, destroyed, we give you the truce to defend that. All divinity beings step up, and Earth is in unified defense.
Because this is resistance-free Earth.
Right.
We're all part
Even
of
for
that.
the cabal. They want full freedom. The whole point of this planet is 100% freedom. We just have to figure out how to live in separate bubbles of reality where everyone can be 100% free with their own infinite bubble of reality.
They can be the king of their own reality.
Exactly. They can have their own Burger King and their own McDonald's if they want, 24/7, delivered to their door.
Okay, this is a good one from Ryan Wong. Hi, Andrew. Recently, I've seen reports that people around the world have heard these strange, ominous sounds coming from the sky, which no one seems to have a definite answer to. I hope you might shed some light on this. Thanks. And then there's a video that I sent you guys yesterday, but I don't think we'll be able to. We weren't able to load it for this Q&A, but we'll send the link out anyway. Can you tell us what your thoughts are on those sounds from the sky? I mean, there's been a lot of space wars. I know you've been wanting to talk about that. Do you think this is related?
Let me just generalize. You have many sounds coming out of the earth, and you have many sounds that are being generated so that we can hear. Sound is just a part of this matrix reality that's based in photonic light. There are times that photonic light wars go on, and the only way for them to manifest in this reality is as a sound. Because the war or the situation is intending to change the reality, and whatever's countering the change in reality is also making a frequency that's trying to nullify it. It's like when you have wireless and you have another thing that's broadcasting on the same signal, it blocks it. That, when two things come together to try to block each other, that is what you're doing when you're hearing these sounds. There are other situations where you have scalar weapons that are creating resonance within the crust. They might be targeting an area that is not active, that can accept large volumes of vibration, and then inside these crustal areas where there's large volumes of vibration, there is spiritual technology that converts that vibration into pure spiritual energy that goes into ceremonials or rituals. So you are hearing the targeting of an area to literally increase its vibration so the energy can be bled off into some creation.
I remember a long time ago I showed you that video of that native in, I think it was Australia, and when he was talking about the sounds coming from the sky, and he said it's happening, it's all starting to happen, and he was so excited about that. I mean, it's also exciting in a way.
Well,
because we see that changes coming around.
Again, when you have those sounds that are those two photonic light frequencies canceling it out, making sound, that sound exists on all dimensions, time streams that are here. So everyone in the galactic ascension machine is hearing these sounds, and that is the innate warning in our light bodies of, oh, something's going to happen. Like the 4 previous time, either it's another uncreational event or it's the end.
Yes, yeah.
Simple as that. We've gotten all the warning signs in our soul, in our mind, propaganda, etc., etc., etc. And now the last warning system before the gates of freedom are open and all the horses take off as fast as they can with no rules.
Sovereign, free-willed. Yeah. And they were also talking about recently that in some of the glaciers, all the air bubbles are coming up out of the glaciers, and it's like a rock concert out there. It's just constant sound as the air bubbles are cracking and banging and just literally coming through these glaciers as all the shifts and the changes are happening. So you got a lot of sounds like that that are also echoing through and leaving their resonance around this planet at this moment as well. Okay.
We'll move on to the next question.
Yes. This is from Marigold. In relation to souls like Princess Diana, who was captured in order to fit into a role here, what happens to these souls when they are released from the role? Are they free to be whoever they want to be? Or is breaking out of captivity more complex and needs more work to be done after the soul leaves the body?
To answer your question, when you have someone like Diana, she's not done. She's just done as this I am presence in this timeline. So what happened to her soul? It got divested into the other 4 timelines where she's trying to resolve karma. In Diana's circumstances, she was individually timeline genocided. So they did not want her being a part of the rise of Harry or anyone else in any way, shape, or form. Her mother image needed to be removed, and the queen's image needed to be stepped forward as the authoritarian mother of that family. Otherwise, there would have been mass quittings within the royal families, as well as backstabbings, assassinations, and not because Diana was involved in any way, shape, or form. It was just because that is the way they do things in those royal families.
She also gave people a conscience. She
Oh,
was
yeah.
so light that if people were like half in between and half out, they started to think, well, maybe we'll go into Diana's camp, and maybe we'll be able to get out of this, and maybe too much of a threat.
Too much of a threat, always.
Yeah.
On the other side, you were asking how hard it is to get out. There are others that their death signifies that they're done with that, depending on how entwined they are. Diana was a breeder, meaning most of her life it wasn't truly free will. It was DNA programming attracted through psychic pheromones that made the experience really fun and lots of dopamine release, but it wasn't really hers.
But it was also, she also even stated in some of her memoirs, and as people said later, that she just felt like a breeding cow, that they got her into this family to create those children.
Yes.
I mean, she was very aware of her situation in the end, very aware.
Her DNA is special. She has been as part of a selective breeding group as a soul for thousands of years. That lineage goes back 3,500 years. That's how much DNA memory is in that lineage.
Why did they bury her on an island? Why is she actually buried on an island surrounded by water? What is the alchemy behind that?
So that she cannot be brought back this lifetime, either as a negative or positive entity. It's to seal the fact that she's done with this reality, and that she cannot directly incarnate or directly reincarnate to alter this system.
So the water's programmed as a membrane?
No, it means she's disconnected from the sacred geometry birthing system.
Okay. So that there's no way she can have access back into this timeline.
Into the Matrix world. She can get access to the ocean world, but not the Matrix world.
Not the Matrix world. All right. So
that's very common practice when they wanted to get someone out of a lineage, buried them on an island.
Wow. Well, that's something really interesting there. Okay, this is also from Marigold. You've been busy. Andrew, thank you so much for doing the Mystery School shows and all of the shows. They have been amazing. I will be processing all of it for some time. In relation to the Mystery Schools, I was wondering what the connection is between those who answered the call of Earth to establish them in the first place, and also whose karma is being resolved in this process. Is it the individuals or that of the Earths, or both at the point of the Mystery Schools being set up? I understand that. Hang on a second. Do you want me to reread that?
Let me give some answers before because it's a very complicated question. Where did the debt come from? The debt was the first uncreational event that was caused by the beings of Earth. Earth had 2 trillion beings live in it, and the next day there were 200 trillion beings in the astral world, force incarnating into any skin suit that they found, tree, rock, dinosaur, anything. That changed the breeding population here, and all of a sudden that means they had access to DNA lineage technology that gave them immortality. And those beings left this world and shared their DNA with other places. Basically, they came here, had one life, got the soul codes, gave them the middle finger and said goodbye, and shared their DNA everywhere. There were beings in Earth that were part of those 200 invaders here who decided to go back to the beginning of our social time and create timeline genocide. That is where the karma has come from. Everyone that DNA was shared by all those that left here lost their DNA experience, lost their ancestralship to new worlds, including everyone here on Earth. That was the first volume of karma created from the first uncreational event. This is why mystery schools were created layered through many points of time, so all karma had a focal point of teaching both positive and negative. That's why the dual 0-point function was installed when people were within the mystery schools, so they could always find their karmic balance, positive or negative, until they can learn it wasn't about that. The hierarchical order was installed to make it even more dense.
I see. And then in fact, that's what Marigold said. I understand that karma was created in the workings. But then she asks, what was the nature of the trouble that the earth was in, if it's possible for you to talk about that?
Okay, the nature of the trouble that Earth was in. If it didn't resolve karma, we would have 20, 30, 40, or 50 paradox timelines, not 4 with a possibility of 5.
So that was the nature of the trouble, to just try and get this.
It would exponentially increase each time until beings volunteered in service to create these mystery schools, not over one lifetime, but over tens of thousands.
Right.
And each time they came out, they would update people on how fast people were learning so they could keep them in the system more. This is where the dark and the light began to work together through mystery schools, so they could begin to educate people. Each set of lifetimes they figured out, oh, I am immortal in this body, and I just forgot it.
Right. Talking about immortals, we have a question from Beverly. And it's a very, very simple question. And I know you like talking about these things. I am looking for any information on the Arcturians. So can you give us a really, just on the Arcturians, not what they did, but just a simple, brief synopsis. Who are the Arcturians? What are they known for? Where are they based? So that at least we have the basics of the Arcturians. Because there's always information here and there, but I've never really heard someone give a full explanation just about Arcturians.
The Arcturians are 5th, 6th, and some scenarios 7th dimensional light body entities that no longer need physical bodies. They have physical bodies when they manifest in a reality such as ours, or they just have an energy body. They are connected to collectives, or called things in their language called dolmas. And a dolma is a soul family that has put together a photonic light library that all members of the soul family have infinite access to, of everyone's consciousness exploration journey. Not your Akashic record, their journey. It's like having access to their most intimate journeys at the soul level, so we can know to go left at this nebula, or if we go right at that nebula, we run into the bad guys.
Like the captain's log.
Captain's log.
Right.
Of all members in consciousness exploration connected to that dolma. Then there are specific dolmas who create master collectives. And then the best of the best filter up to 6th or 7th dimensional expressions, where they're creating massive light vessels that are traveling to the ends of the universe. The Arcturians' technology is in the blue spectrum. So their majority of their existence is in the blue spectrum. But that doesn't mean it's their only. They have lots of other things, because they are fully multidimensional beings, and many live dual lives and have dual citizenships in multiple universes.
So do they, is there a constellation that we know of generally?
The Arcturus constellation.
Arcturus constellation, and that's where they hail from?
Correct.
Okay.
That's where they hail from. They've been a part of our world since the beginning of the Lemurian times, because we were doing something very similar to what they were doing. We just made a bigger band noise in the beginning than they did. As a species, we've been on the playground for about 50 million years. As a species, they've been on the playground for about 1 billion years. But for a part of that 1 billion years, they hadn't figured out full multidimensionality. They were still functioning in specific frequencies. But that's what they needed as a species, so that their species, as light, can find physical bodies that they can blend light and matter with and begin cross-species breeding.
Yes, it was said that the Arcturians, when it comes to this universe, are some of the most advanced beings. They have the best of the best. Their technology is really advanced. They are great teachers, great scholars. They do not tend to polarity. They endeavor to stay as sacred neutral in their perspective. They help us a lot.
Yes.
Now, are they actually able to physically manifest with their physical forms at this moment in this timeline of now?
Yes, and they are walking on this planet just like Pleiadians and hundreds of other species.
And we would just think they would be a normal human when we encountered them, or would we encounter them, or was the
It
frequency
depends.
so high we wouldn't be
No,
able to?
It depends. They could, again, they don't need bodies.
Right.
They would just manifest a body that looks like us and smells like us and psychically talks like us. Until you run across somebody like Teal Scott, who's a forked Arcturian source stream, meaning she's simultaneously existing in two worlds and fully aware of it, having both access to all information streams. So that gives them a unique ability to make a forked anchor baby. So lots of other Arcturians can come and witness through her what humans are doing, and then ultimately figure out how they can do it on their own.
So like a spying glass.
A very positive one, because she is an entangled...
Well, that's what I'm saying. Looking like spy, like you have a spyglass on a hill where you can watch everything that's going on.
One of the things, the Arcturians, they're very special when it comes to entangled or unentangled observer status. Because sometimes they're observing something at an unentangled level on 5 dimensions or 10 dimensions, but they're choosing a sub-dimension that they've created in light to create unentangled observer technology that directly goes into the reality. These are light ships that come into our reality. And they're moving through our reality in an unentangled form, but anyone that has Arcturian Dolma resonation will see that as an unentangled observer, not altering the system. That's how when we look up at the skies, those that are Arcturian just go, wow, where do these lights thing? And then sparks come around them. These are these light ships that are working around you. And they're there to unentangled observer status to get you to entangle with unentangled observers and say, hey, how is this functioning in our quantum reality when reality says it cannot happen?
That it cannot happen. Exactly. All right. So I hope that's fulfilled your question. If you do have any more specific questions on the Arcturians, please don't hesitate to write to us. Beverly. Magnus Kjolen. I always have a problem with that name. I hope I pronounced it correctly. What can you tell us about Norway? Its true history and current affairs in the big picture. Now, Norway was where you saw that huge spiral coming from the sky. So there's been a lot of happenings in Norway. And for those guys that didn't quite catch that, when was it? About 2011? I think it was 2011, wasn't it?
The first year Obama got elected, right after he got because it happens 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, the first time was when he signed Nobel Peace Prize, was it? Something like that.
2008.
2008, yes, and there was this huge...
it might have been just before the stock market crash, 2000.
Yeah, there was some big event around that, and you can actually still see it on YouTube, the spirals in the sky. So, yeah, good question, good question. What's up with Norway?
Spirals in the sky don't just exist over Norway. The one that started in Norway was a technological existence because they had turned CERN on, and then they targeted a specific spot in our area because they were trying to open a dimensional gateway to have invisible dimensional ships transit from another world and reinforce the cabal, but the gateway didn't work. So no actual ships came through and nothing was exchanged. What is Norway? Well, it is another expression of the surviving of Atlantis. Okay? Atlantis, in our historical perception from Herodotus and Homer and all those others, is it was an island. It was a continent. Well, no, it was the whole world. Okay, Atlantis, you got to think of it, they're beings of space, so they would choose the best spots everywhere. The ones that were high up in the hills because they knew that their water would go 200 feet and above and below based off how many times their planet in reality was getting attacked. So the mountains of Norway, the fjords of Norway are all technology created to store psychic information as well as psychic defense systems. It's the heart and soul of the armor of Earth. That's the way I can, like when the warrior wearing the breastplate.
So it's the heart and soul of the armor that is
That's
Earth.
why the Norse manifested who they were, because that's what the technology impressed into them.
So what kind of beings first inhabited Norway besides the Atlanteans? I mean, a lot of people talk about the Nordics. Were they...
you have an off-world species as Atlanteans. They had embassies everywhere, just like we have embassies everywhere. So you would have Nordics who happened to live there, coinciding with the Atlanteans, and as the Atlantean died off or lost into time, the Nordics, who still had some form of ancestral connection there, could fly their ship back there and land and begin to figure out who's been lost in time. because they needed anchors once again. You always need some form of off-world breeding population as ancestral connection in case you get timeline genocide and have no ancestors. Something has your frequency, your residual imaging, and say, yes, you did live here.
That's why we had those timeline fallout shelters, so that we could download all of our memories in case something happened. We could go to that shelter and say, hey, you know, when we could access it again and get our memories back.
So again, it's the breastplate of Earth. But that breastplate of Earth is the whole planet. The way the mountains that were created there, the way the land's been created there, it is such a fortified reality that it impresses to the outer aura of Earth. It's part of that massive fortification system I talked about with the Lance White interviews. So other things about Norway. Once the Atlanteans were pretty much kicked out of the reality and whatever was left was Cabal history, you had thousands of other off-world species that came here to find technology that was Atlantean or Lemurian that was out of phase and stuck inside these mountains. So you have the thousands and thousands of species who have been like scavengers throughout that area. And oftentimes their technology would be broken down, or they would find a massive underground or interdimensional base inside a mountain and then fill it up with their own junk so that they can come back a million years later in time travel. That's the other thing. Underneath that breastplate is the great storehouses of thousands of different species that have been using time travel, and they need a warehouse that they can access any point in time.
And they're still accessing it to this day, or is it being prohibited by the system?
Most of the scenarios in World War I and World War II cleared it out. But there's still a large volume of them that cannot be accessed because it's under a cipher fraud time lock. So it can only be opened in non-fraud time.
It can only be opened in non-fraud time because it's a specific equation that will unlock it.
Right.
So what about Norway now and the current affairs in the big picture? Like, how does Norway stand with current affairs in the big picture?
It is a part of the breeding system. It lost the majority of its status as being the top kings and queens by the 1700s and the 1800s. But that was the nature of the hierarchical king and queen system is going to be gone. Do they still have kings and queens? They have their own expression. Do they run the country? More than you think. So for Norway, Swedish, all of those people up in the area, it's to let it go of the hierarchical order of the queen, the king, and their guard and their traditional servants, so you can take over your own government of yourself.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, still, as far as I know, the military duty is still required.
Pretty much in a lot of the European countries.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people, they used to come to Hong Kong at that time, and I said, why are you here? Well, you know, I didn't want to do military duty.
Right.
They're forced to do it. Yeah, didn't want to kill anybody. Okay, well, Magnus, I hope that answers your question. This is a good one from Thalassa. Where was Christopher Columbus born?
It doesn't really matter, honestly, because he's a time traveler that was inserted into this reality. So the DNA skin suit he has, he just walked into.
So he's a walk-in.
Yeah.
How old was this DNA skin suit when he walked into it?
Just before he got the money from the Queen to do it.
So it was quite advanced in its age before he walked in as a time traveler, knowing that he's going to get that contract.
He set that up, though. He set that up.
Oh, right, he set it up.
So he was a soul shard that he parasitically took over through walking in. Because what he was doing was opening up the destruction of the New World. He was the bringer of death. Do I need to be any more poignant than about Christopher Columbus making it so mass Dreamtime haunted invasions, cities all over the world that have had bloody bodies in them hanging on the walls, all of a sudden those ghosts have Christopher Columbus as a captain with a flag from a queen saying you can all immigrate there now as ghosts and begin haunting the fuck out of this land.
And how do we say welcome to America?
Yep.
Wow. That's pretty incredible information. I'm not sure. Have you talked about this before? This is the first time. Thalassa, thank you for asking that question so that we could get this information today.
Christopher Columbus will not be seen in highlight.
And there we have it.
There's a lot that being new.
Yeah, and there we have it. Okay, we have a question from Sabrina. When someone looks down into their skin suits physically and sees emerald green particles running as a lifeblood stream within and as an overlay over the regular body systems, is it Adamanite? What does it mean when that happens? Adamanite, I shall spell that for you. Adamanite, Adamanite. And what are the particles there for? Which star system have they manifested from and for what purpose?
That is a question that, again, is in a bit of polarity. You are in perception of your DNA skin suit seeing green particles flow through you. A while ago, I did a description of what bone marrow does, and that we are on red blood, and that red blood is creating specific frequencies of psychic pheromones. When you're seeing the green flow, you are seeing how your heart connects to your green part of your blood in your pheromone expression. In the Adamanite expression, you're asking if there's other psychic pheromones in your blood. And the answer is there's a lot more psychic pheromones in your blood too. And the particles that you're observing are actually the particles of your photonic light here, or different light bodies interacting with your blood. So your vision is there. Your perspective into English of the vision is what's off.
And she also writes, it appears to me that it is some kind of a DNA alchemy that has been achieved, carbon-6 shift to carbon-7 perhaps. Would like more information about that, please.
No, it isn't a physical manifestation. It's a recognition that you have strands of consciousness that will be brand new strands of DNA that will give you planetary access to memories off-world. But you have to have the balance of the green blood in conjunction with the red blood, meaning you are still anchored in red time earth with spiritual bodies in communion and union, and then you create green bodies in union and communion that exist in your blood, so that the source stream from another planet has enough trust to connect to you to upload all of the information and memories from your other soul shards in another place and time. So it shows how much trust you have in yourself and your current anchorage to create that golden tube of connection to a place that your other soul shard lives, so it can be integrated back to you through the earth streaming filter mind without coming to you with tremendous negative karma. So it's a much more concrete understanding. Sometimes we cannot always equate it to science, because science is meant to confuse you on a big scale at many of their subject matters.
This is a good lead up to that. I think this is another question again from Thalassa. Sometimes when people write questions, they have a whole bunch of questions. So I'm not quite sure who the profile for this question is. And it leads again to you were just talking about green, now we're talking about blue. I've experienced this phenomenon for about 20 years. Tiny, intense blue lights, like a tiny star.
We answered that one already.
You've answered that one?
2 weeks ago.
You did that 2 weeks ago? See, that was the update on the list that I was needing. And then we have a question from Baby Dragon. This is quite an interesting question. I know that Andrew does a lot of work with multidimensional beings, and he does also do readings for them. He is a galactic historian for everybody, not just for us humans. And it's quite amazing sometimes to see him do his work. So I like this. I like this question. It's from Baby Dragon.
And we'll make this the last question for this episode.
Okay. Anybody watched a video where Andrew gives an Akashic reading to a dragon? Have you ever given an Akashic reading to a dragon?
A live one? On air? Shape-shifted manifest? I mean, there's a lot of ways. I have read dragons. I've had many dragons come to me in different formats, whether it's this being I am presence or one of my spiritual bodies, and yes, ask for readings, because there are times that those dragons aren't able to leave the world with enough of their energy body so that they can come back with the photonic light density from the other place to upload their own body, whereas I can be here and be a disentangled observer of an Akashic record in another world and then translate it into English or to soul language to them, so they have a complete upload to it. It's like switching from gigabit fiber to DSL, the voice. That's what it would be to dragons. So, have I read a dragon live? Yes, just not in this format.
Not in this format.
Have I done readings on people that are dragons inside human skin suit? Dozens and dozens, and live on the air.
You know, there was a clip that got taken down within hours of it being put up, and it was of a dragon that had been captured in a net. And I know you did some work with that dragon, and I know we were trying to find the clip. It's been taken down, but it was actually a dragon that was manifested in this reality.
In South Korea, in a big lake that's there. It was about 9 feet long. It had blood coming out of it, and you could tell it was a dragon. And it had a very thin layer of fur on it, so kind of like an otter that would go through water. Very Oriental type dragon looking. It didn't have long strings or stuff on it, but it was a dragon. Absolute, a manifest dragon that had been killed.
Yeah. Quite sad, but then again, this is another sign for the bifurcation of densities. And that's what you're explaining as well. That these things, the separation of densities, so we will start to see phenomena like this coming up more and more. The question is, how fast we'll be able to track it when it comes online, and if we're able to download it quick enough before the system takes it away, so that we can start to actually keep a file on this phenomena. So if you guys see any awesome stuff, please do send it to us. We're always tracking, we're always looking to see if we can find any of these clips that we can then trace back and give you some more and deeper understandings of this our world.
All right, thanks a lot, everyone. This has been a really fun lead Q&A session. Catch you next time.
Namaste.
Namaste.